Merry Christmas, Ghosties. I'm Macy.
And happy holidays. I'm Natalie.
If you can't tell by our lovely sweaters, it's Christmas week.
Woo, woo, woo. One of my favorite weeks besides Halloween.
Agreed.
Love everything about it.
But just like Halloween, Christmas is a time for ghost stories.
Which we found out last year.
We did.
And I had no idea.
So we got to keep with the tradition, and we're telling some ghost stories to you today. Written by you, actually.
The best. And this week's hot chocolate is so cute. Macy picked it out. What is it called?
Our hot chocolate today was picked solely off of the little container.
I am obsessed.
I hope it's worthy of that applause you just gave, because we haven't really tried it yet. But it's called, it's from Silly Cow Farms, uniquely Vermont, naturally. Vermont. It does exist.
What a strange twist of fate. It's a Christmas miracle.
It truly is. It's chocolate Java chip.
I'm very excited. It smells good. It said to put whipped cream on top, so I did. My little gingerbread man mug had like a little mohawk, but it has melted, so ready to try it.
Me too.
Let's go.
I think this is the best one yet, honestly.
It really might be.
It was just happenstance. Like, I just was like, wow, cute jar. Let's get this.
It's really good. Wow. Okay, Silly Cow Farms.
I see you.
Vermont, you are valid.
You've been sleeping on Vermont.
Vermont
you shouldn't have.
is real.
Wow. If only for hot chocolate.
Yeah, but no, this is actually, I think this is better than the Ghirardelli, better than Swiss Miss.
Yes.
Honestly,
for sure.
after we tried even just the 2 or 3 that we tried, I'm like, maybe Swiss Miss isn't that good.
It's all good.
I hate to say that, but
It's all good, but I think this is the best.
yeah.
It's also at a good temperature. It's not burning my face off like the last one.
Wow, that's really yummy. Okay, I'm going to finish that.
So this episode today is going to have just a bunch of smaller stories. We're going to have I think there's one longer story, but it's just a bunch of small little tidbits.
Yeah.
Good stories. All of them. But
It's the week of Christmas. We're doing the vibes of, small campfire Christmas stories,
Yes.
So I like that idea.
Me too. This is where we call upon you at the Christmas dinner table this week or holiday, whatever you're celebrating this week. Ask your family for their ghost stories.
Oh, wow. That's a good conversation starter because a lot of the time you don't think that people have a story.
Yes.
And then when you bring it up, they go, Actually, I have one.
Yes.
And I have noticed that a lot with the pod because people that I would never think to bring it up ever to just a random stranger, a coworker.
But when they know that we're interested, they're like, hey, I actually have a ghost story. Yeah.
I love it. So yeah, ask your family. Let us know.
You. Make it a new tradition in your house, as we will ours. Our first story comes from Claudia. Hello, I'm a new subscriber to your YouTube channel and I'm loving the content. I wanted to share my ghost experience. When I was a teenager, I worked at an all-girls clothing store that was full of glitter, sparkles, and smelled all fruity and girly. My coworkers always teased that there was a ghost in the store because they found things had been moved overnight. I'm not a skeptic, but I didn't think much of it at the time. Then, management got very serious about finding boxes that had fallen off the shelves and candy wrappers on the floor. Eventually, an exterminator was sent to the store to find that we had a store pet. A very large rat.
Oh no.
I thought this would be the end of the weird experiences until we were at the store overnight changing the layout. I remember my manager and I were on the opposite side of where we had the fruity fragrances, and suddenly the strongest smell of a man's cologne filled the corner we were standing at. Remember, the store smelled fruity and girly, so the cologne smell was shocking. When I turned around and looked at the spot where the smell was coming from, I saw that my manager was looking at the same spot with wide, scared eyes. She looked at me and says, let's finish up and let's go. We never spoke about that experience, but I believe we had a ghostly visitor that night, so maybe my coworkers were right. Claudia.
Why was the man in the girl's store?
Very
That
weird.
Makes me feel very strange. She started
Thanks
with...
for taking it that way.
Well, she started with it's a little girl, fruity, fun, glittery store. And we smelled a man's cologne.
Well, think about how often stores have turnover. How many times have you gone by a shopping center and seen, oh, that store was something else last week and now it's totally different,
That is very true. It just feels weird.
I like the rat thrown in there, but they're like, oh, we have a ghost. Look at all these wrappers everywhere. And it was just the rat.
Aw, that's so sad. Makes you think. That is very weird, though, that whenever people have these stories, they just kind of go, let's move on. I would be like, what is it? What does it mean?
You see that too?
Yes.
Yeah, me too. But we're also very much into it.
Yeah. I think I've slowly, if I went back and watched all the podcasts, I think I am slowly becoming like, ooh.
One of us.
Yeah, because at the beginning I was just kind of like, Wow, scary.
I know. I was thinking that the other day when we were sitting here talking and you were like theorizing with me, and I was like, you have come such a long way.
Who have I become?
Really changed you.
Yeah,
For
a
the
lot.
better.
And the people in the comments too.
Yeah.
Because when I read those sometimes I'm like, oh, I didn't know that was even a thing. And then I get really into it.
And set it in your mind.
Mm-hmm.
Our next story comes from Caitlyn. Hello, Macy and Natalie. First of all, I want to say I love the pod and thank you for allowing people to share their stories. Thank you. Truly. Before I share mine, up until the last year, I had never experienced any of my own paranormal experiences. But now that I reflect, I believe it was around me my entire life. I love that. Sorry to pause real quick.
No.
But I love that when you're like, oh, I don't really have anything. And then when you are hearing other people's stories, you're like, wait a second. And you start realizing the small little things. Yes, like you.
That was us.
Small little things over and over and over again in your life.
Yes.
I love that. I will start with me growing up in a very devout Christian home with a long line of all the men in my dad's side of the family being pastors, including my own father. I grew up hearing many spooky stories involving demons from my grandpa since he had many experiences during his life. A time includes when him and my grandma owned a restaurant and the saloon doors to the kitchen from the restaurant would swing open by themselves. And they would get phone calls throughout their time being there. And they would answer and no one would be on the line.
It's the hash-slinging slasher.
My grandma kept a journal during her lifetime, which we all received a copy of after her passing, and it gave a detailed account of this happening. My grandpa had also claimed to have attended several exorcisms in his lifetime, but my dad would always chalk it up to him just wanting to be a great storyteller, which leads to my next story. My dad had pastored different churches since long before my birth, and what he told me about one of his most recent churches that he no longer pastors still sends shivers down my spine. The relationship with my dad and the congregation with this particular church had gone sour, and he was starting to think that it was soon going to be the end of his time there, meaning he was thinking of quitting. One night, he realized he had forgotten something in his office, and my mom decided to go along with him and wait in the car while he went to retrieve it. This church was set up long ways, as in it was his office, then the actual church part to worship, then a long hallway of Sunday school rooms, and then the room to have potlucks. When he went in, he only turned the lights on the side of the church where his office was, meaning the rest of the church was unlit. As he went to leave, he saw a man with a black hat on standing there ominously and staring at him. Meanwhile, my mom is still in the car in the parking lot waiting for him. He decided when he went to lock up, he wouldn't mention it to my mom, not wanting to add to their already stressful situation of having to leave the church. After he locked up and went back to the car, that's when my mom asked him, "Who were you talking to?" She had also seen him through the window of the church. The actual freaking hat man. That one still freaks me out because my dad is probably one of the biggest skeptics I know from growing up hearing my grandpa's egregious stories. This was only a few years ago. Them both seeing it.
I was going to say the Hat Man, but I didn't want to keep bringing up the Hat Man.
He's everywhere.
Everywhere.
He's ever present.
Who is he? For real. We need to do like a full deep dive, like
travel around the world asking people for their Hat Man stories.
Going to the libraries and read. Like, we need to get to the bottom of the Hat Man. Who is he? You're laughing, but I'm so serious right now.
I feel you. I'd like to know too. I don't know, something about a dark figure with a hat on.
They always have a hat.
Standing in the church.
Why the
feels
church?
Very, I don't know, I'm getting visions of the Exorcist movie poster. You know, the priest with the cap on walking in the the street light.
Why the church? And why could they both see him?
With the church, they were already having like trouble within the church too. So is he connected?
Was he watching him like, oh yeah, leave. Like, get out.
Like this was his plan all along?
The
Creepy.
plot thickens. I don't know.
I feel like that's the slogan of our podcast. Like, I don't know, man. Next, I will talk about my mom. My mom sadly had a very traumatic childhood and would often see things in her room at night, which she believes was a connection. The most memorable story she would tell me growing up was that a man with a cheetah head and really long arms would stand at the foot of her bed. When I got older, I thought, yeah, okay, sounds like sleep paralysis, until I Googled it one day, and this is apparently a very common demon that people see. I've asked her since if she still sees things at night, and she said casually, "Oh yeah, sometimes I see a little gray cherub or gargoyles on the curtain rods."
Okay, well that's not like super intimidating. Like
cherubs, but gargoyles? Have you seen a gargoyle?
They're scary, but like if it's on the curtain rods, they're small. So it's like, the head of a cheetah.
At first I was like, that's interesting. But when she said a demon, I'm going to have to Google this myself.
Yeah, please do, because I have never heard of this. And this may unlock a new fear.
I would have felt the same way though as Caitlyn, just saying, oh yeah, you know, like sleep paralysis, you're just seeing something weird.
Yeah.
But the fact that other people have seen the cheetah-headed figure.
That's new. I've never heard that before.
Me neither.
Never.
I mean, I've heard of animals like mixed with human features,
Like
you know?
goats, but I've never heard of like cats, like big cats.
Yeah.
So that's really, really interesting. I need to look into that more.
Yeah. Very creepy. Her mom had a traumatic childhood. Was that negative spirit feeding on the negative activity and vibrations in her household too?
1000%.
Now I will finally share my own experiences. In 2020 and 2021, I decided to work at one of my previous boss's high-end resale shops. I had a great relationship with my boss and her daughter who co-owned the business. My boss had unfortunately tragically lost her son to a car accident when he was only 23. There would be times that the store would be completely dead due to COVID, meaning it would be almost silent besides the music playing. I would often hear what would sound like shoes being moved around on the shelves when I would be by myself in the store when the other person working with me on that day would be in the bathroom. We would also often open the store in the mornings and necklaces would be on the floor that had been previously hanging on the night before, or designer purses from shelves you needed to use a ladder to get them down would also be on the floor. I never felt threatened or scared though, just like, wow, this is definitely something I've never experienced. My boss and her daughter both taught me that spirituality was nothing to be scared of, and that a passed on loved one would sometimes simply make racket to be like, hey, remember me? I'm still here. They also regularly see a medium to communicate with him, and it was always comforting to hear what the medium told them about their loved one.
That's very interesting. If I died, would you try to contact me?
No.
No?
No.
How rude.
I just don't want to disturb you. Like if you're resting and you are living your best afterlife, I don't want to force you to have to come to me.
You wouldn't be forcing me.
My last and final experience is that I now experience a few things in the townhouse we live in now. I truly believe I had never experienced anything before now because of so many years I had been terrified of anything spiritual due to all the scary stories I had heard growing up. After going through a lot of health issues, I decided that I was no longer scared and started exploring my own journey with spirituality and opening myself up to the idea that there are a lot of unexplainable things out there. To say I wasn't scared at first, though, would be an understatement. It mostly happens downstairs in the garden level part of our apartment. I've heard bangs before on the other side of our laundry room door, and I've experienced the entire doorknob vibrating. The lights will flicker in different rooms of that area, and my husband and I will sometimes hear noises from a part of the space that we are not in. I even felt a flick on my ankle once while being down there. I've now gotten more used to the idea that this could possibly be my grandma doing the same thing as my boss's son, being like, hey, it's me, I love you, and I no longer feel scared by it. It's definitely interesting that as soon as I started to believe there might be something else out there and have more curiosity, that things started to happen. I believe now that there are so many kinds of different spirits, evil and good. Thanks so much for hearing my incredibly long-winded stories, Caitlyn. They were great. Thank you.
Love. And it's so weird because we were just talking about that, like opening up to things and how that's just...
I truly believe it.
You have to be open.
Yeah, at least for the good spirits or anything. Like you have to open yourself up and then they will come to you.
Maybe that's why I haven't experienced anything in a very long time, because I'm like, absolutely not. Yeah. Leave me alone. I'm scared. You know?
I told you, I don't remember what episode I told you in, but I said out loud one time, like, hey, if this is a thing, like I'm not ready for it, I'll let you know when I am. Closed off. I'm not open to receiving this.
And it worked.
And yeah, I haven't really experienced anything. Maybe one day if I feel brave enough to open it up. The only thing is we talk about some dark things here.
Yeah, we do.
And so I like to keep that area of my life closed off, especially when I'm opening myself up to researching the some of the darkness.
Yes, I don't come in this room anymore. This room is strictly for the pod. Ryan uses that closet that we were mentioning.
Yeah.
I don't. This room does not exist unless you are here, to me.
Well, I don't think we've mentioned this on the pod yet, but the weird thing is all of my lights, I don't know if you can tell, but we've got these string lights over here. All of mine, the battery goes out so fast.
Like immediately.
Natalie's will stay on a lot longer, and mine will just, like, within a few uses, they're just out. And I don't know if it's just because I'm researching and saying all of the stuff, and Natalie's just, the all along for the ride.
Probably.
But yeah, that's just one weird thing that we've noticed recently.
It is really weird because we just replaced these batteries too.
Literally just, like, very, very recently.
And they're
in the last few weeks.
Mm-hmm. They're just gone. I have like 4 that still work.
And mine are none. Like I don't think a single one of them are working over here right now.
It'd be so scary if like the light bulb just popped or something.
Oh, please don't. Our next email comes from Charles. Hi, my name is Charles, and I just recently found your YouTube channel and subscribed to that and on Spotify.
Thanks.
Thank you. That's so nice. I am a huge fan of spooky ghosts and paranormal stories, especially since I've had a handful of my own encounters, some of which happened in my own home. I would say in a span of a decade, I've had 5 encounters. Now, I'm not going to bog you down with all of my stories. For now, just the first story. If you like it and want more, let me know. I'm already going to tell you we want more.
We already want more. So go ahead and start typing. Now we can read the first one.
The Tabby in the Mirror.
Is it a cat story?
Might be.
I'm loving the ghost cats.
Ghost cats.
Phantom cats, whatever we want to call them.
I want a ghost cat sticker for my laptop.
I want a ghost cat shirt.
That would be nice.
All right, anyways.
Me and my wife were watching TV under the covers of our bed. I lost complete interest in the program and turned to look at my reflection on the mirrored closet door just near the foot of the bed.
No.
A mirror at the foot of your bed.
I went to our sister's house, Kayla. Kayla just recently moved into a new house.
Yeah.
And she has a mirror facing her bed. And I said, Kayla, how dare you? She's like, I've always had it.
Bad choice. She also doesn't care.
She's doesn't care.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
And, like, roll over and go to sleep.
And she has a mirrored closet door. And I'm like, oh. And she was like, I like it. I'll take pictures.
She's a different kind of person.
She's
She's
not
a different animal.
scared.
She never has been.
I know.
We took all of the fear for our whole family. we took on that burden. So you're welcome, family.
Yeah.
There was a reflection of a cat in the mirror, but there was no cat in front of me to reflect from. The reflection of the feline receded from the mirror as it made its way to the head of the bed. To say I was gobsmacked would be an understatement. I watched as the cat's paw reached my leg that was under the covers. I actually felt the weight of the cat on that leg. I looked down at my leg and the weight that I felt was gone, and when I looked up, so was the reflection of the cat. To this day, I don't know if that was a haunting or was it a temporary tear in the space-time, allowing me to glimpse an alternate reality with the mirror acting like a portal, allowing me to see said cat. Also, can't rule out a dream or hallucination to be fair. I'll leave it to you and your audience to decide.
Ooh. I like that this person said it could be all of these things.
An array of things, yes.
What could it be? And I know I'm probably going to be saying this.
The Matrix,
I'm going to be saying this for the next 6 years. That episode has messed with my head.
Yes.
It's really bad because I don't know anything anymore.
I'd like to think that it's a ghost cat.
I was just going to say the same thing. I think I would like for it to be a little ghost cat.
Me too.
Because that's just kind of cute.
It's just so chill.
Yeah.
I would love a ghost cat. You know what? I'll open myself up to ghost cat. I can't have a real cat. I'll open myself up to ghost cat. So if any little ghost cats out there want to come visit my home, I'm down.
I'm really strongly considering getting a hairless cat.
Thought you were going to say a ghost cat.
No.
I was like, how does one adopt?
If I could choose.
So we'll leave it up to you, audience. What do you think? Ghost cat? Tear in the space-time continuum?
What is it?
Our next story comes from Alice. Hello, my name is Alice. My grandfather had passed away and his funeral was a very significant memory of mine. When I went up to pay my respects at the end of the ceremony, I was met with my first realization of what death was. He had a baby's breath flower tucked in his pocket, but it had no scent. After they closed his casket, I began to feel ill, and my mouth foamed as we walked to the crematorium to send him off. During the cremation, I began to smell baby's breath as I stood outside of the building. The smell was slightly sweet but sickening, and I felt a large sense of guilt for feeling so ill during a funeral. The phenomena that occurred since that day has confused me immensely, and I get chills if I think about it too much. Every time I yawn, I smell the scent of burnt, sweet baby's breath. Occasionally when I lay down, the scent will also enter my nose. It has been 10 years since the funeral. I am now 20 years old. Whether he's coming to visit me or I am just having a decade-long placebo, I believe my grandfather was a good man, and I'm glad he took care of my father so I could be here today. Thank you. I'm looking forward to the holiday season and seeing your channel grow. Much love and appreciation from sunny San Diego.
That's kind of beautiful. I kind of love that. That you could smell that all the time.
Yeah, it's kind of like he's always there to protect you. He was there to take care of your father, and now he's still there to watch over you.
Oh,
yeah.
Yeah, that's gonna make me cry.
Thank you so much for sharing that. I know that was a hard time for you in your life, and
it's a very personal story, but I love that one.
Yeah, me too. Our next email comes from Sam. Hello, this is my first ever time writing into a podcast. We are honored.
This is our first time doing a podcast.
Yes.
I love it.
I have recently discovered your podcast, and it has quickly become my new daily listen. I wanted to send in this weird experience I've had. It may not seem paranormal, but I think there is something more here. I'll start from the beginning. I grew up in a house that had a lot of paranormal activity. From voices being heard all night, chairs moving right in front of us, to something appearing as myself multiple times. I would love to tell more about that if you're interested. Yes. Mimics always scare us.
Yep. I honestly would be down to do like a mimic story part 2.
Again, we have a lot of part 2s.
I know,
we
but
need to start knocking through them. I've got so many episodes lined up.
I know. When people DM us like ideas or comment ideas, I'm like, I think it's on the list, but you're going to have to wait like 48 weeks for that.
Literally. While I lived in this house, I had many weird and terrifying dreams, but one has always stuck with me. It is very random, and I'm not sure why it scares me so much, but in the dream, I wake up and look out my window. The whole world is pitch black, but all of a sudden, a streetlight comes on. A red balloon shows up, and then an ear-piercing train horn blares.
I know you're scared.
Yeah, that just literally sent chills through my body. The balloon turns, and on it is just a large black letter X. Sometimes when it turned, I would see an unrecognizable face as well. Now to the point of my email.
It's just Balloony from Phineas and Ferb.
No, not Balloony. That does feel like a very ominous...
it's like an
warning.
omen.
Yeah,
yes.
some kind. I don't know what, but...
I don't know, but it feels very much like you said, like a warning.
One night I was playing cards with my family. I don't know how, but I begin telling the story of my dream. My brother immediately goes pale and just stares at me. He states that he had the same reoccurring dream while living in that house. My brother and I are not extremely close, but he is a very straightforward and blunt guy. He has never outright lied to me, and his reaction seemed like he was genuinely terrified. I'm not sure what this means at all, but I'm hoping maybe some subscribers could help figure it out. Thank you so much for even reading this email.
Thank you. And also, I would like to mention that I love that people are writing in to get opinions from other people.
Me too.
Because we don't know.
Yeah. I was trying to think of something else to say, but no, that just straight up.
All I've got is Balloony from Phineas and Ferb.
Yeah, so my thought is an omen of some kind.
Yes.
And since your brother's having the same dreams, like for your family, for the house, for the community,
yeah,
I'm not sure.
I think it's more targeted at the family because it's like the siblings having it.
Yeah, maybe.
But I don't know. The X on the red balloon. When they said red balloon, I was like, Pennywise. Yeah. That's really scary though. A singular streetlight.
Yeah.
That's enough.
Like at the end, I'm waking up in a sweat.
Yes.
So comment please down below if you have any insight or have any, I don't know, if we have anybody that can interpret dreams. Because I love that. So yeah, if anybody knows how to do that or understands this, Sam and Natalie and I would love to know.
I would. I'm so excited to read the comments on this video specifically. We're going to have some good ones.
Our next email comes from Taylor. I received a cat clock for my birthday one year. I was very excited as I had been asking for one and thought they were just kind of cool. It is orange and his name is Steve. Loved by all friends and family. He has a mustache and a bow tie, as all boy Kit Kat clocks do. I need to see this clock.
There's no photo?
No.
Oh my gosh.
But I will look it up right now.
Oh, I love him. I've never seen an orange one. I've only ever seen the black ones.
One? Me too.
Because I was going to say the black ones kind of freak me out. That orange one is really cute.
Me too. Or I agree. Yes. I'm cute too. No,
the orange one's cute. Me too. No, but that is really cute. Now I kind of want one. I didn't know they came in different colors.
That really would fit your aesthetic.
I know.
Find a pink one. I bet there's one.
There's this little side table that's a cat like holding up a table. And I sent it to Ryan and I was like, a serious question. If I bought this and put it in our house, would you be mad? And he's like, I mean, if it was already in the house, what would I do about it? And so like, okay. Interesting.
Good to know. Now for context, if you don't know, the tail on the clock is the pendulum. This means that if you do not touch the tail after hanging it up, the clock will simply just sit there. I was 13 when I got Steve for my birthday. First thing I did was go to my room and put him up. I set the time and he was ready to go. I pushed the tail to one side and stood back and just watched in awe. I love that they wanted this so bad. They just stood back and like admired
as a child.
Yes,
that's
as
so
a child,
cute.
13-year-old.
I love it.
I wanted a clock in the first place because there was a small shop in my town that had them in the window. Sometimes walking by the shop, I'd just sit and stare at them for a bit, mesmerized by the way the eyes and tail swung in unison. Now that I had one of my own, I loved watching it too. I remember falling asleep to the ticking of the clock and watching the tail swing. The next morning, I woke up and the room was silent. Confused, I sit up in bed and realized that it was not ticking. The hands were stopped around 1 a.m. I get up, reset the time, and swing the tail. I leave my room to go to school and forget about it. I get home from school that day and walk into my room and was happy to hear the ticking. Over the next week, it continued to happen. Eventually, I was so frustrated with it, I stopped restarting it. I was upset, yes, but at least I still had it, so I was happy. So back to a silent room I was. I was drifting off to sleep that night and suddenly I heard it. Tick, tick, tick. I was absolutely terrified, so I slept in my younger sister's room that night. It continued to happen over and over again until I was just used to it. Eventually, I figured it was harmless and just expected it. The clock was forever off time. Still to this day, Steve resides on the bedroom wall of my childhood home. Still, sometimes my parents informs me they still hear him stop and go repeatedly. No one is scared of him because at the end of the day, he is just a clock, but I will never forget. Steve is a bad cat. Sorry it's so long, but I hope you find Steve as creepy as I do. I'm 22 now, and sometimes I still feel creeped out when I think about him.
Maybe I don't want one.
Nah, yeah.
No. Very cute, though.
Very short-lived dream.
Yeah. It took all of, 14 words for me to be like,
never mind. Yeah. And I am creeped out by Steve now. Thank you.
Me too.
Our next email comes from Ang. I have a few stories, 2 that I experienced personally. The first experience I had was 20 years ago. I visited my parents' home country. I'm Asian, but from the UK, and I was staying at my granddad's place in a tiny little village. I've always had trouble sleeping. This was just another night I couldn't go to sleep. I was lying in bed just thinking to myself, looking at the ceiling. We didn't have smartphones back then, so my insomnia was painfully boring and silent. Everyone was asleep, so all the doors to the house were locked. I was 24 at the time, so I was too old to believe the old wives' tales I listened to as a child saying, "Beware of the night, the mad witch ghost will get you." To be honest, I thought my mom only said this to me as a child to stop me from wandering outside in the dark by myself, so I never did. I had no idea of the time as I stared at the ceiling, but it was still pitch black outside and I couldn't hear the birds, so it seemed like 3 or 4 a.m. Out of nowhere, I heard banging on the front door. The room I was sleeping in also doubled as the main entrance to the house. I heard a woman screaming, "Open the door! Let me in!" I was literally frozen. I was so scared to check on them to see if they needed help. I then heard a child screaming the same thing.
No.
Again, I stayed in the bed, too scared to even breathe in case they could hear me. They did this repeatedly for about 10 minutes, but it seemed like forever. I basically retreated to my 5-year-old self and pulled my blanket over my head and closed my eyes till I eventually fell asleep.
The correct reaction.
The only reaction. The village has a total of 5 houses. All the people are relatives and also will have been asleep. I'm saying this because there would have been about 15 people tops, all of whom I was related to in some way and knew they were asleep.
Oh no.
They also knew I was visiting and would have asked for my name directly if it was one of them that knocked. Also, this would not have been a prank, as they were screaming and banging like it was life or death emergency, and my relatives are way too scared of my mom to make a prank about something so serious. My mom is old school strict and very intimidating, and my family are terrified of crossing her. I woke up around noon and started asking around if anyone heard anything at night. I tried to make it sound as vague as possible because I didn't want them to make fun of me if I told them the truth, which they definitely would have done. My parents didn't hear anything. My cousins that were staying with us didn't hear anything. My aunts and uncles and cousins from the other houses didn't hear anything either. The houses are next to each other, so they would have heard something that loud. When they asked why, I just said, I thought I heard something, but it was probably just the wind. To this day, I can't think of an explanation, and I never told my parents or anyone.
That is so terrifying to me because my first reaction would be, they need help. Let me open the door. I feel like I would
maybe
get to the
not open, but definitely look.
I would say something. I feel like I would get to the point where I would reach and then be like, what am I doing?
First, it's a woman. A woman's voice. So you're less scared because, and then a child's voice screaming, "Open the door, let me in." Like it's an emergency, life or death emergency.
What would have happened if they opened the door? What do they want?
You always ask me that. My answer is always the same. Nothing good.
I just want to know, what do they want? If you're opening the door, I feel like it would be like you open the door and they're not expecting anyone to open. They go, oh, never mind. Like, what do they do? What are they after?
I don't want to know. Honestly, I think they made the right choice.
Oh, agreed. Good choice, Aang, but
that was frightening.
It's very sick. I don't like that one at all, but I like it because it was good.
At first, I was like, okay, well, maybe they are in a busier city or something, and it's just
5
some
houses.
People pranking. And it's 5 houses, all related. So scary.
I hope it was a prank.
Middle of nowhere, I'm assuming, because there's only 5 houses right around. Our next email comes from Harper. Hi guys, I'm a new listener, and I love to listen while I'm playing video games or when I'm doing chores. Listening to y'all reminds me of how me and my siblings would take turns scaring each other with ghost stories. I've had experiences with ghosts since I was little, with the first ghost I saw being that of my great-grandfather when I was around 3 or 4. According to my mother, I saw him on our front porch and repeatedly told her about the man outside. When she checked and found no one, she showed me photos I had never seen before, and I was apparently adamant that that was the man I had seen. My mother told me that no one had ever shown me a picture of him until that day. I love stories like that. As I've grown, I've mostly seen shadow people or partial apparitions, but one thing that stands out in my mind specifically is one night when I had several candles burning at once. I saw the face of an old woman in the smoke shortly after blowing them out. It was only for a moment before the smoke cleared, but my cats were unsettled and refused to come in my room for the rest of the night.
Oh no.
The undisclosed big box hardware store I work for has had more activity than my house lately, though. There have been at least 2 deaths that I know of on the property, and products get moved around outside of operating and restock hours quite frequently. Every so often, myself and my coworkers will hear people calling our names, only to find ourselves alone on whatever aisle or end of the store we're working on. Sometimes the voices calling us will be fellow associates who aren't even in the building due to being gone for lunch or just not being scheduled that day. The very last outdoor register is called The Shack, and it was originally part of the drive-through lumberyard that my store featured before the drive-through was closed down by corporate. On rainy nights, a person in a blue shirt has occasionally been seen running past the shack, only for whichever cashier running it to step out and see if they had run off with merchandise, to find themselves completely and utterly alone.
No. Oh my God.
Once a few years ago, one of my assistant managers was called in the building at 3:30 in the morning because the security camera had detected an intruder. But upon his arrival and subsequent sweep of the store with the police, not a living soul could be found in the building. When the security team reviewed the tapes from the night, they couldn't find a single person past the restock team's finishing hour. I've had plenty of other experiences, but I don't want to risk overloading you in one email. I hope you feel free to read this out on the podcast, but please don't feel pressured to. Y'all are doing great, and you and your sister are so much fun to listen to. I hope you have the best day possible, Harper. Thank you so much, Harper.
Thank you.
That's so
oh my
nice.
gosh. 2 deaths on the property is a little bit too much for me.
I agree.
I don't like that. That's very unsettling to me.
I want to know who this blue shirt guy is.
Me too. Is he one of the ones that passed, or is he just a random person? Because
Someone who liked big box store.
lumberyard. I don't know, because I feel like if I was to pass away at a store, I don't think I'd be sticking around.
Depends on the store.
Or it depends on how I went. Like if the store was like the reason I went, you know? I don't know though.
Wait, the store was the reason you died?
Yes.
Oh, okay. I don't know. If I died in a Michael's or something, I'd be like, I'll stick around. Let's see the new shipment of yarn.
That's yeah, that's a good one. But I don't know. I don't think I'd stick around. So I'd be interested to know who's around and why.
Yeah. Our next story comes from Chesca. Hi, I've been recently binging your podcast on YouTube while working, and after listening, I think it's time to share my scary story I've experienced so far. When I was in grade school, I would spend my summers with my cousin in their city. One summer, my cousin and I joined this tennis class for kids where our uncle was a coach. After one class, we decided to sleep over in our uncle's place since it was closer to the tennis court, and we decided that we would ride with him to class the next day. My uncle's house was a 3-story house with a half-level floor that had his and his wife's bedroom. The main staircase leading up to the second floor was a spiral steel staircase, and the 2 rooms on the second floor had 6 bunk beds each. There was no way my cousin and I were sleeping in a room with that many empty beds, so we decided to take a sofa each, which worked in our favor since we got to watch TV as long as we wanted. I think it was about 12 midnight then. My cousin was fast asleep and the TV was playing some late night news show when I heard heavy footsteps and floorboards creaking from somewhere in the house. At first, I thought it was my uncle waking up to go to the bathroom, until I realized that his bedroom was in the half level, which also had marble floors. And while this fact was settling in, I heard the footsteps descending the spiral staircases. I was too afraid to move and just set the TV sleep timer and covered myself with my blanket and forced myself to sleep. During breakfast, I told my cousin, uncle, and aunt about the thing I heard. I swear I saw my aunt and uncle share a look, but dismissed it by saying maybe it was just a big rat walking around.
Oh my God.
Young me fell for that. Maybe a day or two until my cousins told me more horror stories about my uncle's house. That's all for now. Good luck on your podcast, and I wish you guys the best. Can't wait to hear more stories from you guys. Chesca.
The way these people like to leave us hanging.
I know.
I was like, all right, we're getting into it. Tell us the stories.
I feel like it's that commercial where it's like, I got you $1.
Yes. Yes. All right, Chesca. Send them in.
More.
Let's go. I would like to know about the uncle's house.
I love that the aunt and uncle are just like, they're hearing it too. It's nothing. I also love that they'd rather be like, oh, it's just a giant rat instead of like, oh, it's the resident ghost.
Hey, some people are into rodents. I had a coworker that was very into rodents.
That is true, I guess.
Very interesting character.
I'm more into ghosts, I'd say.
You think so?
Our next email comes from Sans. I was 13 when my parents bought a new home. It was a dream come true. It was a 3-bedroom bungalow-style home, and everyone loved it. As soon as we started to get used to the house, we noticed these sounds at night, which usually got silent in the morning. We had a beautiful terrace that my mother turned into a mini garden. At night, and every night we heard footsteps at the top, like someone or something was walking. Most of the time, we thought it could be a cat or something, but one day, we heard huge crashing sounds like something threw my mother's plants on the ground, one after another. My parents and I ran up the stairs to see, but to our surprise, no pot was broken, nor was fallen on the terrace floor. We were so scared that we used to lock the terrace door at 7 p.m. every night and no one went up there after sunset. Nothing happened inside the house though, and the activity was only on the terrace. But soon it got worse. One night I heard something getting dragged on the terrace floor. It was late at night and I was about to fall asleep, so I woke up my parents and we unlocked the door to see what was there. But as always, it was nothing.
I would like to know, okay, first the history of the house, who lived there, you know, all the things. Did the ghosts not like the plants? Was it just like,
this isn't how I had it set up?
Yeah, it's like this was my chill spot. I only like red flowers. Like, you know, like what was the blue flower, red thorns? Like what was the reason?
Months passed and we started to ignore it, and those sounds started to feel normal to us. One day I had some friends over and we took this Snapchat selfie with the infamous sunglass filter. And just on my right, there was someone with that filter in the picture. Only the filter was on someone, like it was trying to take a picture with us.
Those freak me out. Have you seen videos like that?
Yeah. Soon we got a priest that blessed our house, and we got a pet dog as well. After that, the activities are no longer present. We've been living in it since I was 10 years old. I'm 22 now, and I still remember all the instances that shook me to my core.
I would like to know what made the difference. Was it the priest or the dog? Or a combination of both? I'm very intrigued.
Our next story comes from Deanna. Hi, Macy and Natalie. I've been watching your podcast recently, and I've been loving the stories and topics that the two of you covered. And I was very inclined to share my own stories with you. 1. Dreaming of my rabbit that has passed.
Oh.
I used to have 2 rabbits named Fluffy and Muffin that were about the same age but different breeds. I had Fluffy for 5 years before he had unfortunately passed on. It was a sudden passing, which had affected me quite badly. He had passed on from possibly ingesting some poison, and despite working in a vet clinic and treating him immediately, he had succumbed to the poisoning and passed in my arms at home.
Oh no, I'm so sorry.
From then on, I had Muffin. I had made sure to take care of him so that he could live a fulfilling life. After about 4 years since Fluffy's death, I decided to get a cat and named him Loki. By then, Muffin was an old man, and despite my kitten's antics around him, he would just thump his feet in annoyance and look at me to get the cat away from him. After having Loki for almost 10 months, I had a dream on a random night. I was where I would usually place the rabbit cages, and I saw both Muffin and Fluffy playing together. It was very nostalgic, and the scene was very soft and light. As they played, I suddenly heard a child's voice in my head, and I knew that voice was from Fluffy. "I see you got a replacement for me," he said, but there wasn't any malice in the voice, just happiness. I remember acknowledging it, whether it was a nod or I voiced out yes. I could see him look at me, and in my dream, he seemed to give off a look of happiness before hopping away from me, as if his time there was done. But before my dream ended, I saw Muffin perk his ear up when he saw Fluffy hop away, and he followed after him. I woke up and immediately cried. Every time I recall this dream, even now, I start tearing up. I also thought in that moment that Muffin's time was soon, with him hopping behind Fluffy. True enough, 2 months after that dream, his health started deteriorating. I tried my best to support him. During that time, he would willingly eat the critical care given, but one day he stopped eating it despite me syringe feeding the critical care. That morning, he passed away. He lived a good 10 years. As for the dream, I know some people would think that it's just a dream, but I fully believe that Fluffy had dropped by to approve of me getting another pet, and also hinting to me that it was almost Muffin's time, and that he was Muffin's guide when he passed.
Oh, I'm tired of this podcast making me want to cry.
That's so beautiful.
Try not to cry.
I know. But he was so happy.
I know. And it's really sweet. And I really love that story. But I was with the dream, and then when you said that Muffin followed, I was like, oh,
Muffin.
Love that name, by the way. That's a really cute, funny name.
It is.
And Fluffy.
We're sorry that you lost your pets, but I think it's beautiful that they're together, hopping around, happy and playing.
And they lived happy lives too, so.
Number 2, the antics of the ghost in my previous workplace. I work in vet clinics, but the previous clinic that I had worked at had some interesting things that occurred. One, and the first instance happened when I was working at reception. The clinic was small, so at that point in time, there were 2 of us, one attending to the patients at the back and myself at reception. Also about the layout, there is a small little window between the counter and the only consult room that led to the back so that it's easier for nurses and vets to communicate. As I opened the clinic and there was a line of clients waiting to be registered, I went about the morning registering them, not having the time to go to the back. About 5 to 10 minutes later, I was still registering patients, but the nurse at the back appeared at the little window and asked me where the dog for stitch removal was. I looked at her in confusion and told her that there was no such dog. She looked at me in confusion and a hint of fear. "Didn't you come by to the back with a dog?" And I shook my head, now confused. She was freaked out after that and went to the back. I was curious and confused, but I still had clients to register. So after another 5 to 10 minutes, I was done and went to the back and asked her what she meant. She still looked freaked out. Apparently, while she was in the cat ward, she heard my voice calling for her and said that I had a dog for stitch removal. She responded and said to give her a minute. She swore that it wasn't even a minute when she finished what she was doing and stepped out and didn't see me. That's when she went to the window to look for me. I had goosebumps. It was 11 a.m. I shook myself and shrugged it off and told her not to dwell about it. So after that incident, I was doing my work, which included bringing in patients that were dropped off for routine procedures, when an owner that I had previously registered and knew that she was one of the clients that dropped off their cat for sterilization came in and waited at the counter. I approached and asked her if she had forgotten anything. She looked at me in confusion and said that she was told to come back as the procedure was done. It was 12 noon then, so she dropped the cat 30 minutes ago. I apologized and said that no one had called her and the procedure was not done yet. She looked at me in confusion and insisted that someone called. She even showed me the call log, and true enough, I saw our clinic number in there, called at 11:45 a.m. We only had one phone line, and I was the one holding it. I had not made any calls that morning. I had apologized again, and the client was understanding and left, leaving me to sit at my seat covered in goosebumps. Whatever was in the clinic was mimicking my voice. Those were the only 2 incidents that happened with regards to mimicry in my clinic, though. And hearing other incidents that happened thereafter made me think that the ghost or spirit in the clinic is a playful spirit, not meaning any harm. I don't like that it's making phone calls, though.
No, and that's the second time that we've had a story like that, where someone calls.
Calling? Yeah.
Yes. And it's like a new thing that we started talking about, and I'm not here for it.
There was another incident that I was talking with a colleague in one of the rooms, and there were top-hung cabinets with their doors opened as we were checking stock. Where I live, there is an event called the Hungry Ghost Festival, where it is said that the dead would come out from the afterlife and walk amongst us. As we were talking, the topic of this event was brought up, and we mentioned that the festival is ending soon, so the supernatural incidences should lessen for a while. As we said that, some of the small items in the cabinet that had the doors open flew out. Not dropped out, flew out. The both of us just stared at the items, looked at each other, and just gave a whelp face and left the room. I had tried to rationalize what had happened, but couldn't, as they were rectangular in shape and either stacked nicely or on a flat surface. We don't have natural disasters like earthquakes or tremors where I live, so that was unlikely as well. Again, we just thought the ghost was having some fun. There was no malice in what they did, just creepy. There's another story that I personally have and other stories that my dad had encountered, but I will leave them in another email if I have the time to write them. I love the both of you and the podcast a lot. Continue with what you're doing. I look forward to your next video. Best regards, Deanna.
I've been seeing a lot of stuff like that lately too, where people are talking about a ghost or like denying that there's a ghost there, and it's like, boop. I don't like that. If I ever suspected a ghost, I'm just gonna...
Well, they're like, oh, the paranormal activity will settle. And it's like no, it won't.
No, it won't.
I'm still here.
I wouldn't talk about it if I suspected that I had a ghost in my house.
Really?
I wouldn't say it in the house, at least.
Try not to acknowledge?
Yeah, because I'm not gonna provoke it and be like, oh, you want to see something?
Mm-hmm.
No, I don't. I'm okay.
Our last story today comes from Lisa. Hey there, I'm a new listener. Have you done a military base themed episode? There are so many ghost stories from military bases.
I did not know that.
Please. Oh, I have. I've heard a lot. So if you have any stories like that, send them our way. If you know anybody that has a story like that and is comfortable sharing, send it our way.
Please do. I've heard true crime ones on military bases. I've never heard.
I've heard
ghost stories.
Of ghost stories on military bases all over the world.
Interesting.
A lot. Here's my story. My husband and I were stationed at Yokota Air Base in the western suburbs of Tokyo, Japan. Yokota was a Japanese airfield during World War II that has been occupied by the United States since the war ended. We had an apartment in one of the 9-story towers on the east side of the base. As soon as we moved in, we started noticing strange things. My husband worked nights most of the time, so I would be all alone at night in the apartment. I always felt like someone was watching me or would be behind me in the hall when I was sitting on the couch. One very early morning, around 4 a.m., I heard what I thought was my husband come home, come into our room, open and close his dresser, and go into the bathroom. After hearing that, I fell back to sleep, only to find that he wasn't home when I woke up in the morning. When he got home from work, I asked if he had forgotten something and came home overnight. He said he was working on planes all night and didn't come home.
No.
Then one day, I had 2 experiences in one day. I was in the kitchen making lunch for myself and my husband, who was in his office playing video games. I glanced up and saw a man walk through the living room and around the corner to our front door. Out of the corner of my eye, I thought it was my husband, so I walked around out of the kitchen to ask where he was going. No one was there. Later that night, we were watching a movie, and I went to the bathroom in the hallway to take out my contacts and put on my glasses. My contacts were out, and I glanced at the mirror and saw a figure in the reflection of the mirror walk down the hallway and into my husband's office. I put my glasses on and went into the living room and asked him what he was doing in the office with the lights off. He said he hadn't gotten off the couch.
I would have to say that my vision is really bad and I was just seeing things in between the contacts and the glasses.
Maybe she has a weird floater that disappeared.
No, but I would have to convince myself that it was.
I have so many other things I could tell you from my time in Yokota. Not just my apartment, but my friend's house too. There are Facebook groups dedicated to paranormal experiences on U.S. military installations around the world. Thanks, Lisa.
Oh, this is something I gotta get into.
Yeah.
I'm very intrigued.
They're good ones too, usually.
I would have never thought.
Really? Truly?
I mean...
Lots of high emotion.
That's true. That's true. Well, I
Lots
guess,
of
okay.
stress.
That does make sense
Sometimes in wartime, lots of death and tragedy.
Well, never mind. I take back what I said.
Yeah.
I would have suspected it.
I didn't. It never would have come to mind, but the first time I heard it, I was like, oh yeah, definitely. Yeah.
Okay, I'm with it. I'd like to know more.
So thank you, Lisa.
17 years when we're through with our list, we'll talk about this.
We'll never be through with our list.
It just keeps growing.
So many topics.
But I love that because we were like, at the beginning of the pod, I was like, do you think we'll run out of topics?
Yeah.
Like, I don't know what we could talk about, but there's still so many things I'm really excited to cover. So many. And then it just keeps going. So I'm excited.
If you're interested too, and you're excited with us, you can go ahead and subscribe to our channel. And if you know anybody that's interested, you can send them our way as well. Mm-hmm. If you like this video, go ahead and like it and share it with your friends if you feel compelled to do so. This week, we have 2 episodes of listener stories, so come back on Thursday if you want to hear another one. And if you have a story of your own, you can send it in to us via email. It's ghostiespod@gmail.com, and we would love to hear everything you have.
Would love.
And if you're sitting with your family during the holiday season, during Christmas time, and you get a good ghost story out of them, you can also send it our way.
Please do. That would be so fun to do like a recap of the Christmas ghost stories. Oh, yeah. It would be so good.
So if you do get a story during Christmas time from a family member
or any holiday that you're celebrating this time,
yes, then just put in the subject line, story from the holidays.
Yes, that would be so fun to do like a recap. Oh, yes, I'm here for it.
But we appreciate all of you being here with us, and we hope that you have a lovely, happy, warm holiday season, wherever you're celebrating, whatever you're celebrating, and with whomever you're celebrating it with.
And if you're not celebrating with anyone, we're celebrating with you right here.
Pour yourself a cup of hot chocolate and you can
join us.
Cheers with us.
Yeah, so cheers. Cheers to you. Cheers to you.
And we'll see you Thursday.
Goodbye.